Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bradley Butler, and I am the curator and executive director at Main Street Arts in Clifton Springs, New York. Tonight's event is an artist talk and studio tour with Yael Braha, Sierra Estes, and John Quick. And this artist talk is part of a series of online events in conjunction with our current exhibition, The Cup, the Mug. These three artists are included in this year's exhibition, which is an online invitational. And this year's show includes over 120 cups and mugs by 25 artists from 17 different states. The exhibition runs through December 2nd, and that is viewable at mainstreetartscs.org. There you can learn more about all of the artists in the show, learn what goes into kind of making their work, view each of the pieces they have available. And you can do that two ways. You can go to the exhibition page for the cup and mug. You can also go to the online shop and view just all of the cups on one page. So as I introduce the artists for tonight, I'm also going to show you some of their work. This is work that is available in the current show. Born in Italy and daughters of refugees from North Africa, Yael Braha was raised in Italy in a visually abundant environment that shaped her love for composition, aesthetics, and visual arts. She received a Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Design from the European Institute of Design in Rome and a Master of Fine Arts in Cinema from San Francisco State University. Her past multidisciplinary background, from graphic design to cinema to metal fabrication and installation, informs her recent focus on ceramic work. Sierra Estes is a potter in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she loves exploring the high desert landscape. She graduated with a BA in ceramics in 2015 and developed her studio practice in Houston, Texas, where she made wheel-thrown dinnerware for restaurants. After moving to New Mexico, she is enjoying slower processes like pinching and coil building. And John Quick is a queer artist based in St. Augustine, Florida. Quick graduated from Flagler College in 2019 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree and quickly assumed the role of full-time artist, potter, and educator. John spends the majority of his time in a studio, but when they're not there, he can be found at the beach with their dog, Celine. Before we begin the talk and tour, before we begin the tour, because we're going to be talking, I'm just going to have each of the artists, kind of tell a little bit more about themselves. Yael, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for having us. You've already kind of introduced me a little bit. My background is I grew up in Italy, and I think that has informed a little bit of my practice. I've kind of, and my life path has been very convoluted. I've studied graphic design first, and then was very interested in applying a time-based element to graphic design. So I started to study cinema and filmmaking, and then I wanted to expand in a three-dimensional world, and so I started to study sculpture, and that led to interactive installation. So definitely I took a multidisciplinary approach in my first pass of my of my life arc, and then somehow I discovered ceramics. I don't know why. I tried almost all of the fields of art and combined almost all of them, but ceramics, it was one that somehow it arrived a little bit later on in my path, and I got very passionate very quickly, and then I started to utilize some of the skills that I learned in my prior training and apply them to ceramics. So I'm mainly self-taught. I love to learn, so I took as many workshops as I possibly can given the circumstances, and I love to create. So currently I am an artist in residence in Shigaraki in Japan, where it's morning time and where I've been having a great time having the freedom to really explore. I don't have any deadlines for any show. Well, apart from this show, but that was delivered a long time ago. I've been exploring lots of different new forms, new techniques, new kilns. So I'm very, very excited to have the privilege to be here and dedicate some time to this.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you. And how long are you in Japan at the residency?
I have one more month. I've been overall 4 months. This was a residency that actually was awarded 3 years ago, pre-pandemic. And so we've all been waiting for the borders to open back up. And so it's been a long awaited residency and well worthwhile.
Wow, that's great. I'm sure it means even more now.
Yes,
Great. Well, thanks so much. And we look forward to
thank
seeing
you.
the studio space. Sierra, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I am from Tennessee, but I grew up all over South America and the Caribbean. And I never really considered myself, or I never considered like a future in art making or anything like that, even though I always enjoyed making it. Both my parents are super creative. It just was not like a real thing to me that people actually pursued. And then when I was in school, studying something else, all my friends were art students, and I hated writing the papers I was writing, and I just like yearningly would walk by the studios like, oh, this looks nice. I could never. And somebody encouraged me to finally like take a class. I was terrible and I loved it. And I did pretty mediocre in all my classes except for ceramics, because I honestly didn't care that much about the rest of them, and I just wanted to apply myself in the couple years I had in that program. And it didn't really matter to me what I was making. I just really loved making. I loved all the processes I was learning. I especially loved anything that was more time consuming, like getting introduced to any kind of atmospheric firing, including wood firing especially. And that's not something I've gotten to do a ton over the years, but it's aspirational for me. I try to like get myself into one at least every year or so if I can, and hopefully one day be able to have that kind of setup for myself. I moved to Houston pretty soon after college, and I started doing wholesale work for restaurants there because I already kind of had some connections, and the community there is really supportive of artists, and that was wonderful. But it also really wore me out real quick. And at the ripe age of 30, I'm like, like all my joints, and I knew I don't think I can do this for like in the long haul. And so I kind of started shifting a little bit. And then when we moved here last year, just the pace from Houston to Albuquerque is so different. And it just naturally led me to really just wanting to do a lot more hand building, especially because I finally am pulling away from all this like these big intense orders that take up my life. And so I'm able to kind of explore creativity in a way I haven't in a long time. And let all the influences of the places I grew up, like in the Andes Mountains, and then now being in the desert and the mountains, kind of finally letting those seep in a lot more than I was able to when I was making mostly restaurant ware. So that's where I am now.
Well, that's great. It sounds like a great place to be now. I mean, slowing down a bit and letting inspirations kind of seep in as they will. I think that sounds great. Yeah. And I'm definitely not as a maker, but as a what, that's not consumer. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a word. But as a consumer of ceramics, I don't eat them, but I use them. I love the atmospheric fired work. So that's like my favorite stuff. So all right, well, great. Well, thank you very much. And John, I'd like to hear a little bit more from you.
Sure. Thanks again for the introduction and for having me. So I'm a potter now. I went to school for painting and graphic design. and studied illustration as well, but I now do very little of any of those things. I started working for a production potter right out of school, and that's kind of where I got interested in ceramics more. I'd always been kind of attracted to clay as a medium, but I never really thought about doing it full time until I started working for her. And I was mostly making kind of like dinnerware, and then she had gotten into like slip casting, so I had learned like some mold making skills, and that's kind of where I became very interested in like ceramics as a career. So I've now been doing full time for the last like 6 years. I'm a recent transplant to Philadelphia. So in my bio, it said I was from St. Augustine. I was from St. Augustine for 8 years, and I've recently moved to Philadelphia. I have a studio in the Bach building where I'm at now. It's a lovely space. I share it with two other artists whom I met at Pinland, where I also met Yael. It's a wonderful place. Yeah, I spend a lot of my time making production work still, mostly functional objects, but I have interests in color and form. I spend a lot of my time kind of like designing new objects. I've been kind of branching more into wholesale orders. Yeah, so lots of that.
Well, great. Well, thank you, John. Well, I guess we're on you right now. We see your studio. Would you like to be the first to take us on a little tour of the studio space and
Sure,
show us the lay of the land here?
Sure, yeah. So I'm at my desk now. Got like just shelving behind me, and then like my studio mate Claire is kind of in this corner. I've got like another workspace behind me, and then our kiln. Here, make my way around the room. This is kind of like where I do most of my work, kind of in this area. I've got like a small spray booth where I airbrush most of my pieces. The other half of the studio is shared. And then we have a couple of kilns over here that are shared. I have some like new like lighting pieces in this window that I've been working on. They're kind of like fairly simple forms with airbrush surfaces. I also have some of these like kind of like Ikebana vases that I'm working on for a larger order that I just pulled out of the kiln. There's like a group of them, along with some mugs that are waiting for handles to be attached. That's pretty much the space. It's got nice big windows, which is cool. Which you can't really see the city, but it's normally a very nice view. Yeah, that's my space.
And so there's one other person, or you have a studio mate, but then there's an adjoining studio space as well.
Yeah, so no, I share it with two artists, Molly Bernstein and Claire Whitehurst, both working in ceramics.
Great. And so is that a building dedicated to artists, or is it just kind of a mixed use space?
It's actually an old like school that they've converted into like a variety of different spaces. So they offer artist studios. Like there's a few other ceramicists in the building. There's some painters. There's also like some nonprofits and photographers, all kinds of spaces.
Great. And are you things you're working on now, is that working towards like another show or just kind of orders, or how do you
Mostly orders,
Mhm.
some holiday prep, lots of that.
Yeah. I know, catching everyone at a busy time, doing a lot
Yeah.
of holiday stuff. So yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see. Well, let's circle back to Yael in Japan. See what your temporary space looks like.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry. So I will gladly show my very, very messy studio. I'm a messy worker. There is no work around it. Let me see if I can. Can I flip? I'm on my cell phone, so I'm just like trying to see if I can fit. No, oh yeah, I can flip. Yes, perfect. Okay, so there's a lot of sun. This is my desk. I put a few pieces of recently fired work. I don't know if you can see it. These were all in different, actually all these were all in the Noborigama kiln, which is a multi-chamber climbing kiln, wood kiln that is available here on the facilities. I have my templates on the wall, my very messy wheel that I use sometimes and occasionally clean up, some of my large patterns that I started testing with. This is actually all my collection of patterns that I use to create slabs like this that are waiting to be formed. So basically, all my work starts with slabs, and maybe I'll open some of those just to show you. That's the real color of the clay. So I prefer to work with dark clay and white slip for my gas-fired and electric-fired work. But since I've been here, I started to work with local Shigaraki clay, and which is lighter. And I always had trouble to create enough contrast from the light clay and white slip in a wood kiln, but somehow with some manipulation and variation, I was able to get some really nice results. And also, I know this might not be that interesting, but for wood fire people, that might be interesting. I've collected all the ash from the kiln, and this is just straight Japanese pine ash. And then I take it and I reuse it to create ash glazes for the next round of work. And these are the pile of clays that I've been trying, clearly all unknown to me. So it's been a lot of testing. And then I'll just like show you a little, this is like our open space studio. So these are all other artists who are everybody has a you know, one space to develop their work. And maybe if there's still time, I can walk you to the kiln room. Is that?
Yeah,
How does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our outside area, our little courtyard with prior artist work in the garden, a cafe, and even further up there's a museum. This is actually some of the work that I took out of the kiln just yesterday. So I fired a tiny little wood kiln that is called Itekoi. So all this still needs to be processed, but some interesting results, some breakage, and to be expected. And I'll just walk you to the kiln room because I think that's cool to see.
I think from this video, this place is going to get a lot more applications of people connected to Main Street Arts. What's the name of the residency again?
It's called Shigaraki Sculptural Park.
Oh, we'll have to get that again.
And this is
for another
what I call
time.
the control room. Here we can basically control all of the firings. So the firings, this is like really interesting. It's like a visual chart. So you check the temperature over time, and we work in Celsius, of course, not in Fahrenheit. So we load the kilns, and then we come over here, and maybe I'll show you from here because there's some activity going on in there right now. So these are all gas kilns, and they are electric kilns as well. And there are a bunch of wood kiln that they're up the hill, but I don't think we might have time for this visit, unless you want you want to reconnect towards the end. I can climb the hill and reconnect.
I think as much as
Otherwise,
I'd
that's
love
it.
to see it, I think we probably won't have time for what we've got today, but it's an amazing facility, it looks like. So
Yes, that's great.
and it cut out when you said the name again, it cut out on us. Say the name one more time.
Oh, it's called Shigaraki Ceramics Cultural Park.
Great. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, you answered, but I was interested to know about, because you're not bringing clay with you, so it's really cool to, I'm sure, get to experiment with a lot of clays you've never used before and maybe we're unfamiliar with. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, this area is one of the 6 ancient kiln sites of Japan, and it's been renowned since the 1300s or probably even earlier as a ceramics place. And there's definitely lots of clay manufacturing facilities, but also a very, very rich history of potters. So there's been ceramic artists that have been working on their side on their own wood firing kiln for generations and generation, and they just keep passing on the knowledge. So yeah, it's definitely a rich and inspiring place to be.
awesome. Well, thank you. It was really great to see that. It's I mean, we get to see a lot of different studios, but no one's been at a residency yet, so that's cool. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. Thank you.
And Sierra, like to show us a little bit around your space.
Sure. So my space is this is the first time since in 7 years that I haven't had like a full studio. I earlier this year decided that I kind of wanted to limit myself because if I had the space to produce, I would produce just because that's what I've been doing for 7-8 years. And so I didn't want to be able to like make 30 plates at a time because I would just because if I'm like I don't know what to do, then I just produce, which is not, I just don't want to do that anymore. So when we moved in the summer, and I decided to not look for a place that had a garage or not go pursue another studio space. So my space is split up into 2 parts pretty much. There's this like corner, which I'll give you a little tour of. The rest of it is in like this large storage shed in our backyard. There's no Wi-Fi out there. And back there, I have like all my glazes, all my packing stuff, all my finished pots mostly. Anything that needs to be stored, like extra clay, chemicals, things like that, all of my extra equipment. I have studio equipment like a pug mill, things like that, a little kiln back there. I'm currently not using them, but hoping that within a couple years we'll have our own space and I can like maybe build a little studio or like have somewhere where I can do my own stuff. But for the time being, that's kind of how I'm splitting up. And I also do some hand building back there, but it's getting cold here now. So everything else is done in this like little corner now. I have a desk. I have my desk where I do any amount of like hand building I need to do pretty much. I have some shelves. I'm making a dinnerware set right now and some other small commissions at the moment for like personal stuff, some stuff for like little shops and whatnot. Some other shelves, my wheel, because I still wheel throw a lot for commissions, because I don't want to put the pressure of like commissioning hand built stuff because I'm just wanting to explore in that area right now. But yeah, it's very limited, but it's been very good for me to really try to shift the way I work and not be able to just like explode up all over a space. Yeah, I mean, the work I have in the show is very different from anything that's right here because this is the stuff I've been doing for a decade, that I can, take a wholesale pay cut on and like make a bunch of stuff for somebody. But the other stuff that I make is like a lot of wheel thrown stuff for holiday orders, shop orders, things like that. And yeah, it's been this is my partner's office on the other side of the room. It's been very nice, like a relief, a breath of fresh air to make in such a different way where I'm not I don't know, I'm limited in a way that kind of gives me a different kind of freedom. I don't know. So there's not much of a studio to see at the moment, but yeah, that's what I'm working with currently. And then the first time I'm firing like at the ceramic store here. And so after a catastrophic explosion per their error, I'm now allowed to program all my own firings because someone misread some instructions and blew up a couple of very large commissions. So besides that, like adjustment period of kind of relinquishing that control to somebody else's kiln and somebody else's space, I don't know, it's been really nice. And so that's why the work that's in the show is very different from the work that I've been doing for the last decade. Is just, trying to make less. I'm trying to spend more time on each piece, and just explore the different ways I can create texture and the different ways I can manipulate the clay. Yeah, in just ways that feel like fresh and new. And because I'm only working in electric firings, I'm trying to incorporate things like wood ash and other stuff like that I have a little stockpile of some wild clay and wood ash, and trying to play around and figure out how to further kind of push my surfaces into the direction I want.
Awesome. Well, great. And it's got to be kind of nice. Well, obviously it's nice to kind of like have a different space to kind of focus on a different thing, but it's also kind of nice to have still a little bit of that, stuff you've done in the past, to kind of, keep you going as well. But I wonder, do they ever compete? Like when your hands are trying to do one thing and then they start doing the other thing,
Yeah, I really have to kind of, I can't just go, oh, I'm throwing a dinnerware set and then now let me like pinch some cups, because I've been in like production mode. And so I kind of have to like walk away, like connect with my body a little differently, and then come back and kind of give myself a buffer zone of like the first 5 things you're gonna make are probably gonna be terrible. Those go back in the bucket, and now just keep. But that's I guess the nice thing about doing both is that I can rely on the stuff I've been doing for a decade as like more of my financial income. That's the stuff I'm really secure in doing, and then it gives me the freedom to explore in hand building, because I'm not putting that pressure on myself in that area in any like. That's why I'm trying to reconnect with wheel throwing. Is I do it at a production level, and so I don't want to do that anymore. I'm trying to relearn that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, it was wonderful to see, each of those different spaces. And I think before we kind of close, I had a question come to mind earlier, a very basic question, but one I don't think I've ever asked on here. And it just has to do with the idea of, functionality. What brings you to making functional work? I mean, you can do, all of you kind of, in what you're doing, whether you're moving beyond working in the wheel, you're doing more hand building things, or having sculptural elements to your work, or really, pushing texture on the surface. There's so many things you could do which go even further than the functional object. So I just wanted to know, what brings you back to something that people interact with on that, one-to-one basis. And anyone can go first. I think, let's see.
Yeah, I can go if you want. I think that I, at my core, just want to make pretty objects to look at, which for a while I thought was kind of like maybe like vapid or like shallow, but I've kind of leaned into the idea of just like making pretty ceramics. I have like coined the term candy ceramics, not only because of the color, but just because it's like something sweet to have around. It's something to like brighten your day a little bit. I think that's what draws me to like the kind of like bright colors I use a lot of the time. And just like making an object that has like, especially these like recent objects I've been making that are like covered like in rhinestones. They're just like, I mean, it doesn't really have a function like other than like this pot holds like a single stem, but it takes like 50 plus hours to make, and the only thing like it has to do is look pretty. And I think there's something like nice about that.
Awesome.
I'm gonna follow up on John because I think we both have the same objective, but like we go about it in like polar opposite, which is amazing. This is like a testament of all of our different personalities. But I also look well my my search is more on creating some design object, just coming from my background in graphic design, and John, also yours. I think we're both drawn. Well, I shouldn't be speaking for you. I am drawn to to design aesthetics, and in my work, I often work with very simple forms because I'm just searching for minimalist type of architectural inspired forms, and let the surface just do its magic by deciding how to frame it, how to crop it, that it always gives like a completely different results, even if I were to use the same similar pattern. But my choice is to use black and white, and again going into the minimalist side, and that makes me happy, and I hope that it makes other people happy. And I know some people like my work, mainly architects and designers, but I love the ultra colorful work, John. Your work is great.
We all have our audiences, right?
Yes, I think so.
Great. Well, thank you. And Sierra, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess a lot of my work really just kind of has revolved around the ideas of like connection and ritual. Um, Connection both like human to human. So I really love connecting with customers, especially if they like come back. Like I do the farmers market here once a month, and people maybe will buy something and then they come back the next month and they're like, I use it every day. I love it so much. And that, like, honestly, it wouldn't really matter what I made, but the fact that they're using it and that it gives us this connection, I really love. And then the other connection that for me I love is the one with like the earth. I love dirt. I love and I think clay is just like the most magical thing. It just gives us this connection with something that we often overlook. It's like the earth is so sacred and beautiful, and there is so much magic in it. And so the fact that like I get to make stuff, amazing. And then that I am giving or selling or offering things that people then can use every day in these moments of ritual, whether it's like sharing a meal or like their own little coffee moment or like filling a vase with flowers, these things that are so mundane but can be so meaningful and sacred and beautiful and like are what makes our lives often like deeply meaningful. So those that's what it is for me. It's I love dirt and I love just that everyday stuff that we do, and being able to bring the earth into our lives in that way feels just like I feel like a very lucky person to be able to like touch it on its way to somebody. Yeah, that's what it is for me.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think connection's definitely very important as well. So, well, great. Well, I just want to thank each of you for joining us and showing us around your studio spaces, and also just for being a part of this exhibition. This is the biggest the Cup the Mug exhibition we've done so far. So there's 25 artists, as I mentioned before, and you can see work by these three that you just heard from on our website, mainstreetartscs.org, along with the other 22 artists in the show. Highly recommend that you go check that out. And we have one more of these artist talks planned the series we're doing. And that's next Tuesday, November 28th, from at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And that is with April Edwall, Delvin Good, and Peter Ronan. It'd be a good one again, I know. So again, thank each of you, and everyone go check out that show, mainstreetartscs.org, through the 2nd of December. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.